Guys, I appreciate you guys, putting this stuff on. Like, this is the stuff that people need to be talking about and listening to. And so I appreciate you guys for taking the time and energy and effort to like produce podcasts, because I know that it takes energy, it takes effort to get the message out there and spread the word and the gospel of potential and success. And so I appreciate you guys for having me on. Thank you.
What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. I wanted to chat about a couple things before y'all listen to this episode. I want y'all to listen to the consistency behind the topics that we talk about. I want y'all to go home and take these golden nuggets and start implementing today, because I guarantee y'all these are the core principles you need to start succeeding. Anyways, go enjoy. What's up, everybody? My name's Justin Taylor. I'm here with my co-host Austin Wilder on episode 3 of the Golden Nugget podcast. I'm here with Chad King. I like to compare him to Chris Voss when it comes to negotiating. He's the negotiating guru. He closes every closable deal. The foundation that I negotiate on, I mean, everything that I learned was taught from him. He was a part of 7-figure flipping. He's a master at negotiating. He'll close any deal. But what's up, Chad?
How you doing, man? Thanks for the generous intro.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I've seen some of the deals that he's closed in the last year. He's like I said, he's a negotiating guru. But yeah, I guess that brings us back to our first point, man. I know we were chatting a little bit before this podcast, and we were chatting about how you're a father and you stay busy. You're a father, and there's got to be a gold nugget that we can implement on scheduling your day. That's the first topic I want to chat on. Like, what's your gold nugget? I know some people focus on time blocks. Some people really focus on like saying from 7 to 7:30, I'm going to cold call from 7, like they're specific, whereas some people are a little more general. What's your gold nugget that the listeners can take home on the scheduling your day?
Yeah. For me, man, and this might be a little bit different, but dude, I wake up and I work on me first. I think when it comes to scheduling and prioritizing, I think too many people, they get up and they just sort of like fall into their day and all the to-dos and everything that come along with the emails and the requests for the time and energy and everything. And most people don't take care of them first. So like when I get up, like my phone stays on mute. It doesn't get picked up until I get a workout in and I get my reading done and I take care of me. And you just mentioned, I got a little baby that's grabbing my time. So my wife and I got to communicate even more than we already were communicating about, hey, you got to take her from this leg so I can get my me time in. Because if you don't get your me time in, you can't be the best version of you for the rest of the world. And, I don't know, and at least in my life, the second that, 8 a.m. Central hits or 9 a.m. hits, like it's just everybody else is working. So those emails start flooding in. So I guess my gold nugget there would be like, take care of you first and first thing in the morning and do what you need to do for you. And it may not be a workout and a reading, like it may just be a cup of coffee on your patio, but just to take care of you first in the morning.
Yeah. So when you say take care of you, like for example, when I wake up in the morning, I implement that. Like I get in the Word, open my Bible, do some devotion. Like what's something you do? Like, what do you mean? Like take care of you?
Yeah. First of all, I read, so I'm taking care of my mind. I work out, so I'm taking care of my body. And then I do a lot of journaling, a lot of writing. So I'm taking care of my vision, my goals. I'm just taking care of myself and my future first. So then I can go into the world and be the best businessman, the best father, the best husband, because I've taken care of me first. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. I like it. Just really focusing on you. It starts with the internal. When you focus on the internal, the external is going to improve. But when you focus on the external, the internal it's going to be hard to really improve. But hey, I kind of did things backwards. I want to go back a step. Can you spend about 5 minutes kind of bragging? I want people to know the type of success you're seeing, so that when we implement these gold nuggets, they know that like this is what you're doing. This is helping you achieve these type of goals. Like, will you spend a couple minutes just kind of telling people what type of success you're seeing right now?
Sure. Yeah. So everybody's definition of success is different. For me, it's just the constant pursuit of your potential. Like if you're waking up every day trying to get better, in my mind, you're successful. Like I don't think there's a dollar figure. There's not a unit count or anything like that. For me, it's really just waking up every day and just trying to get 1% better than you were the day before. So I appreciate the compliment. From a financial standpoint, I'm nowhere near where I'm trying to get to. But if you guys want a little background on me, I got degrees in finance and accounting. I'm a numbers guy. I especially like the ones with dollar signs in front of them. And so out of college, I went and worked for Xerox. I was selling copiers door to door. Worked my way up the corporate ladder for a few years at Xerox, and then just kind of got burnt out with the whole corporate structure. I started studying successful people, and I was seeing kind of that they had control. They had the people who had the money had the control, and they had the control of their own lives and their schedule and their time. And you know, I just kept getting pulled into that. And as I studied more and more people, that this concept of real estate kept coming up. Like I kept seeing a lot of the wealth was in real estate. So I eventually just quit cold turkey at Xerox, left a six-figure income to just get into real estate full time. Stumbled a tremendous amount in the beginning. Like, we could talk a lot about kind of my struggles the first year that I was in business, but I tried a lot of things. I lost a lot of money. I was in credit card debt up to my eyeballs. Eventually I found I found my way into like the wholesale fix and flip space. So fixing and flipping houses and doing the wholesale. And so scaled that business up. Again, started kind of really grassroots guerrilla marketing, because that's what I knew, like door knocking, that kind of stuff, because that's what I knew, and I didn't have any money. So I had to kind of do the time and energy thing, and worked my way up, linked up with some great partners. You mentioned one of my business partners now, his name is Bill Allen. I linked up with him, and we really poured some gasoline on the fire, and it was like rocket fuel, man. And we partnered up, got into some new markets, and we expanded the business, and we started fixing and flipping. And in 2019, we did 168 deals, fix and flip and wholesale deals. 2018, I think we did like 140. And then in 2020, I went out and so we were making a lot of money. We were doing well, doing a lot of deals. But we, every year, every month, every quarter, we had to just go back out and do more deals. And we were living in this sort of transaction land, and we needed something that was going to provide passive income and sustain us long term, instead of having to go out every single day and find new business every single day. And I still wholesale and fix and flip. It's a phenomenal way to make money. It's a terrible way to multiply money. Like, you're not an investor if you just flip houses. You're a flipper. It's a high paying job. So I got into and I'd been studying this apartment space, multifamily apartments in real estate. So I started really walking properties on the weekends, underwriting deals at night while I was wholesaling and flipping as a full-time gig. And 18 months into my studies, I finally closed my first deal. It took quite a while of doing it on the nights and weekends, but closed my first apartment complex. And then it was sort of like a domino effect. Right after I closed my first 14-unit apartment complex here in Nashville, I closed a 21-unit and then a 49-unit. And then we started scaling up and doing some bigger deals and doing some 506B syndications and 506C syndications. Throughout 2020, we closed 5 properties. 4 of them we bought were direct from seller. So I took a lot of the tactics and negotiations, like you mentioned, like the negotiation tactics and everything that we use in the direct to seller market, and applied that to apartments. And 4 out of 5 apartment complexes we bought in 2020 were direct to seller. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. So in my business right now, I do a little bit of coaching for other people in real estate. Coach a little bit about money, and I'm buying, apartment complexes is my main business right now, is what we're doing. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I like to the reason I want you to do that is because, like, people hear about the success you're having, but I want to chat about obviously you don't get accepted on every single deal. So like, if you probably have your portfolio would be 10 times bigger if everybody told you yes. And so I wanted to chat about the failure. My idea of it is like conflict equals opportunity. So each time somebody tells you no, like, you learn, okay, how could I have negotiated better, or just blah, blah, like all that. So like, what is your mindset when you are setting these goals? Like, what is your mindset and your approach to failure? Like, with all these rejections you get, because you have achieved all that, but I guarantee you've probably got told no a whole lot more. And that is frustrating at times.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm just jotting a couple of things down. I tend to go on some tangents, so I write a couple of things so I can always bring myself back. I think failure for me I learned it early on with working at Xerox because all we would do is like I would go to the top of an office building in downtown Fort Lauderdale and I would just knock on doors like all the way down, and I would get 20 doors and then go to the next floor and do all the doors there until I got kicked out, because eventually someone would call and they'd come up and escort me out. And then I had to go back the next week because I would, I'd only get a few floors and I had to go back the next week. And, eventually I had to figure out the security guard shift so I could get around that security guard who would recognize me so I could get to that next floor. And so I tell you that to tell you that like I got very familiar with the word no. Like that was because I would chase those no's because I knew the more I got, like I was just getting closer to a yes. And we hear that. I mean, you hear that analogy, like every no gets you one step closer to a yes. That's no more prevalent than in door-to-door sales, because you have to really just like go after the no's because you just got to keep chasing it. When it comes to failure though, I think it is a signal that you're moving in the right direction. And I think people look at failure differently because of the education system and what they've tried to instill, that failure is a bad thing. It's one of my beefs with the education system right now is they teach people that failure is bad, and they teach people that cooperation is cheating. And in the real world, in the marketplace, in entrepreneurship, in life, failure is the best teacher in the world, and you should chase failure because it's telling you that you're going in the right direction, right? Failure allows you to make adjustments and then continue on the pursuit of your goals. You're gonna fail. And if you're too scared to fail, you might as well just lock yourself up in a room and just not do anything of meaning. And I'm talking about people who are actually going after their goals and their dreams. Like I'm not talking about someone who is complacent. And I guarantee you, someone who's complacent is not listening to a Gold Nuggets podcast. So I'm probably not talking to many people that are listening. I'm talking to the people who are going after their goals. So you got to acknowledge and recognize that failure is going to be a part of that journey. And then when you do, like, look at it, digest it, figure out why it happened, control what you can control. And if it was something, if you failed and it was something that was outside of your control, like, hey, I got this property under contract and the seller lied to me and they weren't on title and they actually can't sign. Well, dude, you can't control that. So move on. Like, don't let it dwell. Don't dwell on it, and don't let it fester because it's outside of your control. But if you did something where, hey, I said this during a negotiation, I kind of blew up the deal, like, okay, well, what I do is I record all my sales and negotiation conversations, and I listen back to those so I can get better. Because if I do have that failure, I want to go back and diagnose why and debrief with myself. Okay, why did this happen? How can I prevent this from happening again? And then just keep pushing forward.
I think a lot of people think that, like, if you're in the middle and you have failure on one side and success on one side, they think it's either, okay, I'm gonna look to my right and see success, or I'm gonna look to my left and it's gonna be failure. But really, it's you, failure, and success. Like, failure is along the way. So kind of to sum up everything in a gold nugget of what you're saying is like the way you view failure. Like, the gold nugget is just how you view it. Like, it's a learning curve. Like, conflict equals opportunity. So don't view failure as a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not, it's not, it's the best teacher. It's the best teacher. And it sucks when you're going through it, like when you're in it and you might maybe have a big loss, or a deal falls through, or you fail at something, or like you have a business venture that gets, knocked off course. I mean, it sucks in the moment, but when you take a step back and you look back on those things and you realize, well, I'm sitting here right now because of all the failures that happened back here and all the adjustments that I made. So look at the big picture when you're in the middle of a failure like that.
Yeah. So to that person that's listening, like, you basically, what you're saying is you failed a whole lot more times than you've succeeded.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because, you look at, if you just look at a standard pipeline for a deal, like, I'm big on pipelines because I'm a sales guy, but you look at a pipeline, like, I have to look at 80 deals to buy one. I mean, I don't look at those other 79 deals like, oh man, this deal's a freaking flunk and I should have bought this deal. Like, I don't look at that. I just realize that that's the pipeline. And, I think you got to realize that it's a numbers game. Whatever game you're playing, at least for me in the money in the real estate space, like, it's just a numbers game. Like, the amount of activity that you do, the amount of action you take is going to be a direct result of the amount of money in your pocket, equity that you obtain, deals that you get, is just a result of the amount of action you're going to take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Man,
me and all, you can go.
I was just gonna say, Chad, I'm assuming you've read Rich Dad Poor Dad. A lot of people, either at your level or just at Justin and I's level, have you're like a walking Rich Dad Poor Dad, like the Xerox company, all the real estate gains. I mean, you're
Yeah.
literally paraphrasing the book about, basically it's like playing a game. I just think it's
Yeah.
funny making these parallels in our podcast. Like,
It's funny you said
I
that. I
just,
got this book is over on my desk over here.
yeah,
I read this one a couple of times already, and I really like this one. It's just sitting on my desk. It's funny you said that.
It's called Fake. Is that what it was?
mm-hmm.
Fake it's another Kiyosaki book. It's his newest one.
Yeah. Can you think of any gold nuggets from that book?
Oh, there's a lot of gold nuggets, man.
Yeah.
Um,
What's
the biggest one?
yeah.
Money's not real.
Money's not real. I like it. Can you
We
elaborate
could
for
go
about
into-
30 seconds?
Dude, it's fake. It's fake. It's
Yeah.
paper. I mean, it's just a piece of paper. In 1973, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. And once he did that, like money became a fiat currency. It's just a piece of paper. The only reason it has value is because you and I place value on it. And I give it
Yeah.
to you, see that it has value, and you give me something in return. But at the end of the day, it's not backed by anything. And the
Yeah.
chickens are going to come home to roost. I know this isn't a money podcast, but I love talking about money. But I mean, 40% of the money in this country was printed in the last 2 years. They're printing trillions and trillions of dollars right now, and it's all backed by nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm not like some doomsday prepper. I got my storm shelter in the bottom. I don't know that that's going to happen, but I will tell you that at some point, when enough people catch on to that this paper is just worth nothing, and then you go into like the fractional reserve system, and you put $100 in the bank, and they lend out 900 because they can lend that. That's the ratio that they lend money out. So if you went to the bank, if everybody went to the bank and tried to pull their money out, you couldn't even get it because it just doesn't exist. So it's I mean, I guess my gold nugget, I went down a rabbit hole there, but my gold nugget is use money now to make yourself better, to gain more knowledge so you can go out and make more money so that you can take that money and go buy hard assets. Because you do not want cash in the bank. I'm broke right now. Like I don't have any money in the bank. I mean, all my money is out in hard assets that I can go touch, feel, that is working for me, and that is shelter where people need to live. So I know that for me, it's the most secure because I'm like, no matter what happens, whether we go to a Bitcoin or whether it's something happens, somebody's going to have to pay me to live there because I own that building. I can go see it, touch it, feel it, smell it. And
Love it. I love it. I feel like we need a whole nother podcast for that subject.
we could talk money for hours, man. So it's cool. It's a cool thing, man. If you use it right and if you take a step back and you stand on the edge of the coin, Robert Kiyosaki talks a lot about there's 3 sides to every coin. You stand on the edge, you can look and see kind of that the majority of the population has been taught trade your time for money, and they trade time, and the paycheck is actually the biggest trap that anybody can give you. And the entrepreneurs of the world trade value for money instead, and then they use that money to then go multiply and do more things. So, yeah, man, it's great.
It's a tool.
I love it. Hey, man, I could talk another 45 minutes about that. I love it. That's awesome. But I guess kind of going to the next bullet point, I want to chat about goal setting. So you had mentioned kind of around the time Corona hit. Since then, you've bought 5 apartment complexes, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So what I wanted to chat about the goal setting and kind of the mindset behind that. So for example, with me, I read the book Traction. So that's kind of my goal nugget. I go home, I implement that. Like you can do your 10-year goal, your 5-year, 1 year, and you break it down into quarterly. And then I really focus on like my daily habits. Like if I repeat it this day for the next 5 years, where would it take me? So that's kind of how I set goals. So what is your goal nugget for when you're setting goals during the hard time like that? What gave you the belief that you could set goals like that? And what is your method for setting goals to help people stay on track to move the needle forward?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. And the book Traction by Gino Wickman's a phenomenal one. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like, what's your 5-year vision? What's your 3-year vision? What's your 1-year vision? And then you break it down into quarterly rocks. And then, okay, so if I want to get to this goal at the end of the year, what do I have to do this quarter to get to that goal? And then it's like you break that down into weeks and then days. For me, I write I try and write my goals down every day. I've been slacking lately, but I try and write them down every day, and I write them in the future tense. So like I have 1,500 units. Like I have a house on the beach in Florida. Like I write these things down as if I already have attained them, but I have not attained them yet. So I write those things down and start to get myself in that mindset that I've got those things. Like I have $100,000 a month in passive income. I have all these things. I'm a best at like all those goals. I write down in the future tense, and then I would say for me, man, I do. If you guys are familiar with Andy Frisella, he teaches. He talks about winning the day. So I do critical tasks in the morning, and I have 6 critical tasks, and I just do 5 of them. There's always one that just slips, but I write down my 6 critical tasks for the day. Usually it's like, read 10 pages. And they got to be needle mover tasks. For me, it's not a to-do list. I'm not writing down 6 to-dos. Like, it's not like, hey, check my inbox. It's not crap like that. It's things that are going to actually move the needle for me and my businesses. So it might be, call 2 brokers. It might be, prospect for 1 hour. Those are the types of things. I mean, I do it every single day. I journal my critical tasks, and that's what I do. And those tasks are in supplement of my long-term goals. And then I have my big vision goals up here for the year. And then I have my goal. So I'm looking at them every single day. I think that's a critical piece. A lot of people just do this at New Year's, like on January 1st, they just, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds this year. And they say that on January 1. And then everybody knows 2 weeks after that, that goal it's not in front of them every day, and it falls by the wayside. But I'm looking at, I got all my properties up here, and I got my targets at the bottom, and I have all my streams of income on this board with all the projected revenue for the year. So I'm looking at all those things. So when I write my critical tasks, they're all in supplement of what I want to achieve on my goal board. And then I focus on I focus on little wins. Like I'm trying to win the day. I think a lot of people underestimate what they can do in, a few years, and they try and overestimate what they can do in a year. Like this, even, you pointing out that I bought these apartment complexes in 2020, like that's great. And somebody listening might be like, oh my God, 1 year you bought 5 apartment complexes, but it's actually 3 years, because you got to look at the 24 months that I was studying the game. I was walking properties. I was underwriting deals. I was doing all that stuff for 18 months before I even closed on my first deal. So that all counts, man. So, and those things were all tasks that I was doing in support of that bigger vision 3 years ago. And, I think the critical tasks would be my golden nugget. Like, just write down the 5 or 6 things that you can do today that will move the needle for you and whatever you're trying to achieve. I have personal ones on there, like give my wife a foot rub is on, like I put that on there because that helps me in my marriage and in that life. Like I'm going for balance. People talk about like this hustle grind, like that's all good. And we all know how to grind. Like everybody can just sit down and work hard, but it's about balance for me now. And in my personal life, my health, my wellness, all those things. So I went on a couple tangents. I'd say golden nugget, critical tasks every day for me are the thing that helps my goals.
No, I love it. I was actually listening to Will Smith yesterday, and he was talking about like so many people want to go build these walls, and they're not focused on just laying one brick perfectly. Like I'm going to lay this one brick as well as I can. And so like Chad, you had mentioned it wasn't 1 year that you bought an apartment complex. It was actually 3, because during that first 2 years you were studying, during that first 2 years, you weren't trying to build a wall. You were like, okay, I'm going to lay this brick and I'm going to study how to dynamically place this brick the most perfect. Nobody's going to lay this brick better than me. And when you do that every single day, before you know it, you're going to have a wall, because too many people try to build a wall and they have all these cracks in the foundation, and it's not going to be a strong, sturdy wall. And so something I wanted to point out was like Chad really was laying those bricks. He was focusing on like, what's going to move the needle forward? I'm focusing on these small victories. And then another thing that he had said, like me growing up, when I heard of people writing down, journaling, I grew up where it was like, oh, that's men don't do that. But I've implemented that. Like, no, go write it down. Chad Chad writes it down. He looks at his victories. He writes down. He looks at his goals and he writes it down and he looks at them daily. And Chad, let me ask you, how many times do you feel like maybe you face something and you're a little like, oh gosh, how am I going to do this? But then you have to revisit your goals and you kind of get revamped back up. Like, I mean, that's daily, huh?
Every day, man. I mean, the uncertainty, the doubt, like, and you hear this from successful people that, it looks when they're on stage or they've achieved all these things, it's easy to think that, man, they just don't have that doubt, or they don't have that uncertainty, or they don't have that sort of that little voice in their head that telling them they can't do it. Like, but you listen to them talk and you read their books, and everybody has that. They just choose not to listen to it. So that voice is going to creep in. Like, I mean, it's called, for me, it's imposter syndrome. I do some high level coaching. People pay me thousands of dollars to coach them. And, I have a little bit of that imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to do this? And it's prevalent throughout. Like, I hear it at the highest level. A guy named Ed Milet. I'm a huge fan of Ed Milet, and he talks about having that, like, who am I to be in this position? But that voice is going to be there regardless. And you just have to choose not to listen to it. Similar to, like, we all have that little bitch voice in our minds too, that just tells us, like, hey, you don't need to work out today, or hey, just, you don't need to eat healthy, man. Just get a pizza. Like, we all have that little bitch voice in our head, and you just got to choose not to listen to it and listen to the other voice that pushes you to the things that suck. Like, hey, it's pouring down rain, it's freezing cold outside. Why don't you go for a run? Like, and nobody wants to do that. Nobody likes running. I mean, running sucks. Nobody likes it. But you choose to listen to that voice, and what you'll find is the more you listen to that voice, you start to train your mind to lean into those things. It's like a muscle, and then that self-discipline will eventually get you to where you need to be. Yeah.
Man, if you don't mind me asking, I just wanted to, this came across my mind. Whenever you jot down these 5-6 critical tasks, on average, how long do you think it takes you to get through that list? I mean, does it take you all day? Sometimes does it, what is it?
Dude, I'm done by noon sometimes.
Man, and I think that is super important.
Yeah.
The fact that some people have these long lists, or, that they think might be long. I mean, if you can knock out that foot rub, call the brokers, I mean.
And guess what? I go play golf after that. Like, if I get my task done, like, I'm going to go play golf in the afternoon. It's a life by design that we're trying to live. Depending on where you're at, like, you may be in a W-2 right now, but if you're in a W-2, a 9 to 5, what are you doing from 7 to 11 that's going to start to build that life that you don't need a vacation from? And, I didn't mean to cut you off, Austin, but to answer your question, man, if you get those critical tasks done and you know that those tasks move the needle for you that day, dude, everything else is gravy. And if you want to just, like, go play golf because you moved the needle that day. And I think that's the other thing is some people think that you have to work 18 hours a day. Like, you can be more productive working of really, really dedicated, strong 5 or 6 hours than just sitting at your computer for 18 because that's what you think you need to do,
Man, I love it. I mentioned this in the last podcast, and I feel like it's a perfect opportunity to mention again. But in the last podcast, I had mentioned like there was a hole digger that asked a millionaire, like, how do I become rich? And the millionaire was like, you go work hard. Well, the only problem with that was all the hole digger knew how to do was dig holes. So he went and worked hard, and what were you left with? Just bigger holes, more holes, and a hurt back. And so basically what Chad is saying here is he's moving the needle forward, whereas the hole digger is just going out there to hustle. He's digging bigger holes, whereas Chad, like, the hole digger is using a shovel, where Chad is using the machinery, and he just takes 3 or 4 big scoops and he's done for the day. He's kind of got that. He's moving the needle forward.
Well, and I think the hole digger should have asked that guy, well, what else should I do? He didn't ask him any other questions. He's a terrible salesperson, because you don't just say, if the answer was go work harder, I'm going to be like, okay, well, what should I be doing? Like, where should I be focusing my energy? And he would have gotten hopefully more answers from the millionaire that would have said, okay, well, you need to go invest in yourself first, in your education. You need to learn new skills, because digging holes ain't a skill that's going to make you a millionaire.
No.
right?
And I like that. That's a gold nugget right there. Like, what questions are you asking?
A lot of people aren't asking the right questions.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So what's a question if that person has absolutely no clue what they want to do in the next 10 years and they have somebody like you sitting across the table? Like, what's 2 or 3 questions they need to be asking you?
Oh man.
I hate to put you on the spot like that, but
Yeah, I mean,
I guess what would you ask yourself from, years ago? What would you ask yourself?
I think about that. I've been asked that question on a couple of podcasts. It's like, what would you tell yourself? And for me, like I would tell myself back in the day, like, quit wasting time, because I think that's, I saw a quote the other day and it said, Warren Buffett is worth 100 billion, and I guarantee you he'd pay 99 billion to be 40 again, and he'd give away all of his money to be 40 again, because that time just is ticking, man. And I think I mean, I look at time a little differently now than I did a few years ago, and I wasted too much of it, not just doing things that weren't in support of my goals. And to answer your question, Justin, is the person that's sitting across from me, I'd need a lot more context as far as what they're after and what's their why, because you can take the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I mean, people who listen to this podcast, like, they can listen all they want, but if they're not doing the work, it's not going to work. And we have a mastermind group that's coming up, and it's like people are coming into this mastermind group, and one of the things I say to them on the front end is, hey, if you need someone to come pull you out of bed in the morning, don't join. I'm not your guy. I'm not going to come and pull you through on your journey to success and say you need to do this every day and come check on you. Like, if you don't have that self motivation to do the work that's going to be required. And when I say do the work, I'm talking about those critical tasks, right? I'm talking about those things every single day. The consistency is the tough part. It's easy to do it one day. It's easy to go, like, get all jazzed up. You listen to the Golden Nuggets podcast. You're like, ooh, I'm riled up. I'm going to do my critical task today. And you make some calls, hammer it. Yes, great day. Go play golf, enjoy it. Then you wake up the next day. And guess what? You got to fucking do it again. And the next day. And that's in the win. The successful people master that monotony. They master the monotony of the consistent daily efforts in support of the vision and the goals. Mm-hmm. They master that. And in the mastery of that consistency is the success that you're going to find. But it's hard. It's difficult.
No, I think one thing to really hit on is, like you said, they master that monotony. I read a book called 15 Laws of Personal Growth by John Maxwell, and he talks about that exact thing is like the successful people were just good at getting through the boring stuff. That's where the problem is. People think they're going to stay motivated 24/7, but there's a lot of monotony. Like, I made 600 phone calls last week. Like, that's boring. Like, it's not fun, but I had to, like you, up on the wall, I put my vision, my 1-year goal. I have certain goals I want to do by the end of the year. And when I saw that, it's like, it kind of reminds me, like, oh, I'm doing this so that I can get to this financial goal, or I want this financial goal to help me do this. And so you had mentioned, like, your why is what's going to get you through that.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Man.
So
go ahead.
What were you gonna say? You good?
No, I always have fleeting thoughts that I don't know, man. That's just we could talk. This stuff, like, pumps me up.
I know, me too.
Conversations about it, it's just like, and you wish that, if everybody was pushing to be better versions of themselves, could you imagine where this world is? Like, if we weren't, if victim mentality was not rampant in our society, and if people weren't looking for handouts, and if everybody took ownership of their own futures, and everybody was chasing after their goals with this limitless idea of that anything you want is completely attainable if you're willing to put your mind to it and work for it. And unfortunately, that's not the society that we live in. And if it was, man, we would be, light years ahead of where we are now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's not enough people talking about this stuff. I mean, there's not enough people talking about, and there's not enough people talking about money and how money works, because we live on an economic planet, and you need money to do what you want to do, and not enough people are talking about that topic. It's not taught in school, so it's unfortunate, and a lot of times that is the driver for a lot of the victim mentality and a lot of the reason why, you know, a lot of people aren't chasing their goals and their dreams is because they have the wrong information. They got bad information, and it's information that's passed down, you know, and it's information that is rampant in an antiquated educational system, and that information keeps people suppressed, you know.
Yeah. So let me ask you, for this Gold Nugget podcast, like us focusing on mentality, to that person that's chasing that knowledge and they're not taking the time to really focus on themselves, like how important do you think this topic is? Like really bringing it back to the foundation, the core principles, because I feel like people skip that step. Like how important is this?
You're talking about like the focus on the personal, or you're talking about how important is what?
How important is it, like this conversation we're having of like focusing on goal setting and how you set it, how you schedule your day, like what is your approach to failure, like all the topics we're chatting about today. Like I feel like people skip that. They want to go straight to having the business knowledge, but they skip the first part of what we're talking about.
Yeah. Man, if you're about to go on a across the ocean on a ship, and you get on a ship and you go across the ocean and you don't have your destination exactly picked out of where you're going, you're going to be in some fucking trouble, because you're going to be in the middle of the ocean and just going in circles, man. So I think you have to be very, very detailed and accurate about where you want to go, because otherwise you're going to end up someplace else that you didn't intend to end up. And think about how poorly that would go for you if you left the harbor and you didn't have a destination in mind. You would just be sailing around in the ocean, like going left, right, circles. It doesn't matter. You'd just be, and eventually you're going to die.
And you could have the most skilled, the guys driving the ship. He could be the most skilled,
Yeah,
but wouldn't know where to go.
you could have the best captain in the world, but if he doesn't have a destination, hell, that ship might as well just stayed in the harbor. You might as well not even left the harbor, because you're not going to go anywhere. And there's another analogy that, you know, I think if a plane leaves the runway from LA to New York, okay, and the heading is set for New York, and this is the power of 1 degree. We talk about getting 1% better. The power of 1 degree here. If that plane leaves LA and it adjusts its heading just 1 degree, just 1 teeny degree, it's going to end up in like I think the stat is it ends up in like North Carolina or something. Thousands of miles apart from its destination, it ends up, because just 1 degree is off on the heading. And that's the power of time too. Like over time, if you're off, you know, your goals are not clear, you're going to end up on a destination that you didn't intend for. So
I think that brings it back to your critical task. Like you have your vision and your critical task. Like you check your critical task. Is this critical task going to bring me to my vision?
that's
And
it.
so you're checking that daily. Like you're not just putting things down on that critical task. Like for example, I'm looking at my schedule right now. It's labeled critical task, but I have something called deep work from 9 to 10 p.m. every day. I do what's called deep work. It's not critical task. Critical task is going to move the needle forward. Deep work is on the business. Like I'm constantly reviewing, like, is this moving the needle forward? So that's kind of what you're saying is like, as the pilot he's constantly reviewing, is he on that angle to get to where he's trying to go?
Yeah. And that, you know, that all the tasks that get written down, and it takes practice. Like you got to practice this stuff, guys. This is not like tomorrow you're going to implement critical tasks and just be great at making them, because, you know, I run every critical task through a filter. Like it's easy in the beginning to get confused on what should go on your critical task list, because it's very easy to put there like respond to the email from the title company. Well, is that really a critical task? Is that going to move the needle, or is that something you just have to do and you're trying to fill up your critical task list so you can feel good about yourself? And only you know that. Like, nobody's going to check you. Like, only you know that. So you got to be honest with yourself and make sure that you're not putting like frivolous things on there. Like, I don't know. I mean, when I first got started, I would add things that just, you know, kind of like weren't really critical tasks. They got to move the needle. So put them through that filter.
Yeah. So when you say put them to that filter, I think what you say, because this is what I do personally. Like I have 2 blocks. Like I have a deep work block and a critical task block, and I might have 50 things on the critical task, but in the morning I'm only picking like the top 3, and I do those, And then after that, like you said, once I do the 3 things that's going to move it, the rest of the day is kind of gravy. Like, okay, everything I do now is just extra.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And I have 4 buckets. I have, my personal bucket, like my health and my wellness. I got my family bucket. I got my wife and my baby. I got my business bucket. I got my companies and my streams of income. And I'm trying to make sure that I'm filling up all my buckets constantly. Like you don't want to really press hard in all your critical tasks all day, every day for months and months, or just filling up your business bucket and your family life slips. And that's why sometimes my critical task is give my wife a foot rub, because I got to keep my buckets full. I got to keep all my buckets full, including my health and my wellness. Like, when I'm training with my personal trainer, like that's a critical task because that helps my personal bucket. So, and that, we talk about that balance. I mentioned that in the beginning, and that's that balance that I'm talking about is, don't let one area of your life slip because you're just so focused on something else. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Austin, were there any points, or you too, Chad, anything that y'all wanted to chat on that maybe I forgot to cover?
I thought you've got some stellar information. And I think, I mean, this has probably been my favorite so far that we've talked about content wise, just because like, man, this is just stuff that'll change your life. No, it's not a tomorrow, everything's going to be different, but like, it's a, 1 degree, 1 day at a time.
Yep.
I mean, this is good stuff.
That's it, man. And I appreciate the compliment. I thought it was a phenomenal conversation. And I just want to say one thing, like I didn't create all the stuff that I mentioned today, everything I said, like I didn't create any of it. Like it's all comes from this. It all comes, and I have a shelf over here, and it all comes from those. Like this information that we're talking about, this stuff, it's out there to be learned if you're willing to learn it. And like when I talk about a critical task is like 20 pages a day, it's because 20 pages a day, what you don't realize is if you just sit down and read 15 pages, even if reading's hard for you, just read 10 pages, make that your critical task. And over time, you start to accumulate the knowledge that's in these books. And, you pick your head up. If you read 10 pages a day, you're going to pick your head up at the end of the year. You're going to have read like 10 or 12 books. I mean, and imagine how different your life is going to be if you read 12 books, and 6 of them are about real estate and 4 of them are about business and 2 of them are about personal development. Think about how different your life is going to be. And it's just done with a little bit of effort every single day. And then, I'd say, I think my final point for people who might be sort of on that cliff of waiting to like take the leap into whatever that next thing is for them. And I don't know what it could be. It could be any number of things, whatever your goals are, just commit first and figure the rest out later. Like commit, build the plane on the way down, jump, figure it out, just go all in. I mean, like my wife and I, when we got married, we moved to Nashville, Tennessee. We didn't know anybody. We just packed up a U-Haul and just moved to a new city. And it was just like, we're just going to figure it out because we want to be uncomfortable. We want to be in a new place, and we want, and I'm not saying just pack your stuff up and move, but maybe you should just commit to something, commit to a business, commit to something, and then figure out the details. So many people get inundated with trying to figure out every single little detail and trying to prevent all the hiccups in the road. And it's inevitable that you're going to run into them. So you might as well just take action and just commit now and then figure it out. Build the plan.
I love it. And that's something that I see that's consistent is a lot of people that are achieving high level things when they first start, they didn't know it 100% of what to do. They committed and they figured it out along the way. Like my mindset is like learn 70% of what you can and learn the rest on the way, because you get into analysis paralysis where it's like, okay, you're trying to learn everything and now you're not making any decisions, where you have that person alongside of you that hadn't read a book and they're excelling because they're learning along the way.
Yeah. I mean, and you learn more from, like, I remember my first wholesale deal. I probably watched 500 hours of YouTube videos on how to wholesale properties. And I'll tell you, I learned more from putting one property under contract, and it didn't even go through. I had to cancel the contract. But I learned more from that one transaction of doing a deal than I did from the 500 hours of YouTube videos that I watched on how to do it. You just learn more from doing, and that education is just, it's priceless. So you might as well just go ahead and do it.
Chad, I thoroughly appreciate you. I know you stay busy. You have a kid. You're achieving some high level goals. I appreciate you. Me and Austin are just, that's why we started this podcast. We wanted to drop some gold nuggets like this. So I appreciate you, Austin. Were there any final points? Or are you good?
No, man, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep chugging along. You're killing it in the game right now.
I'm trying, guys. I appreciate you guys, putting this stuff on. Like, this is the stuff that people need to be talking about and listening to. And so I appreciate you guys for taking the time and energy and effort to like produce podcasts, because I know that it takes energy, it takes effort to get the message out there and spread the word and the gospel of potential and success. And so I appreciate you guys for having me on. Thank you.
Absolutely. Right. Do you want to tell anybody that's listening where they can learn a little bit more about you?
Sure. Yeah. So you can find me on Facebook at Chad King on Facebook. I keep my Facebook pretty business. If you guys want more of my personal life, I'm Mr. Chad King on Instagram. I share a little bit more of my personal life on Insta. And then I have a company called Titan Capital Group. Titan Capital Group is my apartment company. And then I got a little coaching business called The Deal Room, and you can listen to me negotiate deals live. And if you want to find that, I'm on Facebook too at Chad's Deal Room. So that's awesome. Where I'm at.
Awesome.
Cool.